right, klesha. There's a bunch of different ways to translate this word. One of my favorite ones is poison. Poison. But that does sound a little harsh, doesn't it? Yeah. So what's a word that you've heard of to translate the word klesha? Affliction. That's a real common one. What? Stain? Like a stain on your shirt? Oh, that's interesting. Stain, and I heard obstacle. Sometimes you actually just hear the word suffering. I don't think that's a really perfect translation. The one I think I use the most is either obstacle or affliction. I think those work really well. And so let me ask you this. How many of you in the last, I'm going to say week, have either said to yourself or to someone else, oh, I hope. How many of you have said that? Okay, so you have experienced klesha firsthand. Does that make sense? So if you literally have felt, thought, or said out loud, oh, I hope something is going to happen, or I get to see so-and-so, or whatever. Or how many of you have also perhaps said, I'm really afraid that, yeah? Okay, so that's another of the kleshas manifesting in your life. How many of you have felt some kind of anxiety, whether very mild or big, in the last, I'm going to say the last day? Right? How many of you flew here? Don't you just get a little tiny bit of anxiety when they're telling you, if we fall down over the water, here's where your life jacket is. I mean, it's designed to bring us into anxiety, right? And then what about, how many of you feel like you've had even a mild case of, for lack of a better word, depression? Right? Or let's just even call it a sadness or something that kind of lasts longer than a moment where you initially experience something that is sad, right? You've had that went on for more than, I don't know, a minute. Yes? Okay, so let's just face it, we're all embroiled in kleshas, right? So these are, what I want to do today is to look at this ancient concept and try to bring it into your life today and give you some things to play with so that you recognize when the kleshas present themselves in your life, whether that's on your mat, on your meditation cushion, walking around, meeting new people, or with your oldest, dearest friend / lover, there is, which I find is the place where they're the most interesting to deal with. Do you know what I'm saying? Yeah, I love intimacy, and intimacy is very challenging, isn't it? Is my partner here? I'll hear about this later. These are the things that we can look at in our lives. And I think if we look and create very simple questions for how this stuff presents itself for each of the kleshas, then we'll be able to see them real quick. And what do we know about change? Change is, first and foremost, hard. And second, what makes change possible? The awareness that you need it, right? The awareness that something is amiss, wrong, challenging, painful in some way, right? So that's the moment. That's the magic moment. Just like any yoga practice, the magic moment is when you realize that somehow you've checked out, right? When you're on your mat and you're going, oh, I can't wait to have a sandwich, right? Rather than being aware of your breath or what your hands are doing or whatever the pose is. That's the magic moment. And I want to preface this whole thing we do here today with the idea that being aware, allowing the awareness of, oh man, I checked out again, is not something to turn into shame or frustration or disappointment, because that's a whole nother layer of stuff you got to work through. Does that make sense? Right, but rather to celebrate that moment. Found myself again, checking out, right? And rather than being, oh, gosh, am I ever going to get it together? To really feel, oh, look at the awareness I'm bringing now. And bringing that awareness with joy and celebration so that you stay in the moment. Not to the degree that you're like, I am so evolved. Right, now that's gone too far the other way, right? I like to say in deep back bend practices, Hanumanasana is my favorite time to say this. You guys, if you're feeling frustrated or ashamed or disappointed that you don't look as good as that really bendy person in front of you, or if you're feeling so proud of yourself that you feel fabulous, either one is just as challenging in the sense that it's taking you out of this moment in time. And that's exactly what the kleshas do. The Kleshas turn our minds into these minefields of frustration, disappointment, fantasy, fear, disappointment, clinging, attachment, all of that stuff. And does any of that stuff actually happen right here, right now? Does it? You get to talk. No. This is what learning about the Kleshas is all about, is that we start to recognize what's an inevitable setup of what might look like a painful situation versus the suffering we create around that. And when we can start to separate, to divide those things out, life is real different. Right? What we have learned to do is pile judgment on top of pain or desire. And it is those judgments, those wishes for, those fears about, those attachments to, that really is the stuff of suffering. Right? Life is going to happen, isn't it? You're going to, trip off the edge of a rock. You're going to fall into that cold lake and get cold. You know what I mean? You're not going to balance in your handstand every time or whatever it is you're working on. You're going to sit on your meditation cushion one morning and it's going to be so lovely. And then the next day it's going to suck. Has that happened to you? Right? No? Never? Yes, okay. So this is the stuff, is that we can look at how we respond, how we react to what's going on, and not make it a bigger thing than it already is, right? To accept what it is and not catastrophize. I love that word. That's what the Kleshas are all about. Do you know this word? Catastrophize. Let's say that out loud. Catastrophize. Right? This is exactly what we're talking about, right? Because stuff is going to come. There's going to be rocks in your path. There's going to be misunderstandings. There's going to be disappointments. There's going to be fabulousness, right? That's not going to last, right? So the point is can you control how you respond to it? Can you enjoy it in the moment? Can you even enjoy the sort of sadness in the moment? Are you willing to dig deep into how it actually feels, even when it's not that comfortable, and then let it go and move on? This is working with the Kleshas.